Yo, Miami. Close your eyes. And I don't care if you feel to realize this is the Damn Good Day Show.
The Damn Good Day Show.
I don't care how you feel, because I know today you're going to feel good.
So good.
Because the way you feel is a choice. Life, happiness, yes, is your choice. It is a way, it's the future. When you shine a light, elevation is felt. The question where time, place a dominant role. How difficult to end what time is used. However, time was never made to express what is felt.
We're rocking, we're rolling.
Rocking.
All right, we'll get it in 3, 2, 1. What's up, brother? Great to see you.
All good. Likewise, Ian, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're on the Damn Good Day Show. You rolled up in absolute style. What's this bike called?
It's called Van Moof. It's actually a Dutch bike. It's sort of the Apple among the bikes. So yeah, it's an electric bike, but it's very nicely integrated. So, you know, if you don't know the bike, you might not know it's electric.
What are some of the features that makes it like a next level bike? You said it auto shuts off. Is it like a biometric control type deal?
Yeah, exactly. So basically what happens is that imagine you park your bike and someone else comes and tries to steal it. It basically, you know, starts to, turn on the alarm. And then within a minute, everything shuts off. So basically you can't use the bike anymore. On top of that, it has a GPS tracker. So you can literally figure out where your bike is. It's pretty accurate. And they also have a team. Unfortunately, they're not yet, very active in Miami, but like in New York, LA, obviously in all the European cities, you can literally call in a a bike squad, and they will go and chase.
They have a bike squad. Oh wow!
Yeah.
That's a cool job.
You better not steal the bike.
There's security services, and then there's the bike squad that just goes after people that take their customers' clients. You're basically joining a straight FBI service.
Like exactly. The other thing I love about the bike is just the turbo boost. So. It's just like with a car, you can surprise some people if they don't know you have it, and so you can accelerate.
How fast do you think that can rip?
Well, it's more about the acceleration. I haven't really tried how fast it can go, like in terms of from
right.
Let's say within 5 seconds. I think actually more or less within 5 seconds you could get up to 25 miles an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's pretty decent.
Yeah.
On a bike, right?
Yeah, on a bike. And bikes are the best. I'm trying. Sky has a great bike. We've been saying that I need to go get my bike soon. There's a lot of really cool trails in Florida. Like Shark Valley is a really great one in the Everglades.
Right.
You buy a park pass for $50 a year. You can go there whenever you want. And it's a 15-mile loop.
Oh, wow.
And the first half is more prairie-ish. And then the other half is just like swamp along the side, and there's just so much alligators and birds and wildlife, and people go there and just rip it in laps to prepare for races.
And the bike lanes, are they broad enough? Or?
Yeah, they're very broad.
Oh
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great place to bring family to if you're like just trying to go sightseeing. Highly recommend it. But if you rent the bikes there, they suck. They're just like jammed up in your just not the play.
That happened to me in Tulum, and I was like, last month I was in Tulum, and I was sort of, do I get a bike or a scooter? I don't really like to wear a helmet. And that's not because of safety reasons, because I know because of safety reasons you should, but it's just mess up your hair. So anyways, so I was like, okay, let me get a bike. I couldn't get any bike, man. The bikes were like, first of all, like it wasn't for my height. And then second of all, like the bike wasn't really moving the way it's supposed to move. So in the end, I got a scooter. But I love cycling, and I support it. Like I actually, I'm very, very pro bikes. It's so nice because, like you can detox a little bit, from the slur of the city, your work. We're constantly behind computers nowadays, or phone. And so when you're on a bike, you actually see the city in a whole different light, And then with Miami, the weather is just amazing. If you go around the beach,
Well, some of my best times and memories are when I think about right before you got your driver's license, 13, 14, 15, when you and the gang would just roll out, and 2 or 3 miles away was a truly far from home, right? And if you hit, for us, it was Mickey D's, and just going there on the bike with your friends, it was just this you built this community. It was so much fun.
Exactly. It's like a sense of liberty, right? Like you feel liberated. And in the Netherlands, where I was born in Amsterdam, I mean, that's the common thing, right? Everybody is on a bicycle. I mean, anybody that visited Amsterdam is like, wow. If you go to Central Station and you see the amount of bicycles, I always get a question like, how do you find your bike back, you know? Because like literally like hundreds of bikes next to each other.
Yeah, that's gnarly. I'm very excited that I got to even meet you in the first place. Big shout out to Augusto.
Definitely.
So Augusto Alverdes, he's the founder of Global Child TV. I met him through Peter Taunton, who I met through the podcast, and just another plug of why I think everyone should start a podcast, because it leads to great conversations and good people. But we went to a 40th birthday party for Augusto, and there was just these great people. I mean, just someone that really stood out to me was Freddie. Just such a great guy. He's already done so much for me in the short period of time, and it's just a phenomenal person. And then it was interesting because I didn't get really a chance to talk to you because you're on the other side of the table.
Correct.
And then as we were leaving, I was just like, hey, does anyone need a ride home? And you're like, hey, man, yeah, actually, do you mind? I'm like, yeah, of course. So I dropped you off, and it was 10 minutes away. I missed the exit, and then we ended up just parked out in front of your building for over almost an hour, just talking at like midnight about everything from life to religion to your backstory. So I want to just start real quickly. Can you tell me a little bit about your background with your work with Google and kind of like that journey that went there?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, shout out definitely to Augusto. It was a really, really amazing birthday party, and all the people that I met, including you, so thank you. So yeah, in terms of my background, well, it's true, like I worked for Google for quite some time. One of the highlights for me at Google was when I got to manage the YouTube Street Soccer Tour, which was the major anchor for the World Cup soccer in 2010 in South Africa. I used to play soccer myself, and so in fact, one of my teammates made it to the team, the Dutch national team, and so they became second in that World Cup. So it was a very special time, and also because of my African roots. But yeah, basically that was an amazing project because I started at Google within the advertising space. So I managed,
and this was right out of school, or?
Not straight out of school, actually. So basically, I studied business administration, international business administration, with a focus on strategy and finance. And I always loved, the creative industries and anything that's innovative. And so initially, I was like really much geared towards the music industry and fashion. So I also went to Milan. That's where I studied as well for a period of time. I got the chance to go on an exchange program there, which was really, really amazing. Highly recommend anybody to go on an exchange program. And so when I got there, I learned about these industries. But what I noticed, for example, in the music industry, so I wrote my thesis, for example, about strategic renewal in the music industry. At the time of the internet, really at the beginning, we're talking about the early 2000s, right? I didn't see them embracing the internet. In fact, they adopted so many defensive strategies. So I wasn't really keen on working there because I felt like this is gonna, sort of going backwards, right? Type of thing. So one day I met a buddy of mine from university, and I saw him with a Google crew, and I basically just greeted them. And all of a sudden, I don't know really how, but it was kind of interesting. There was the manager from Google, and he asked me if I was willing to get on an interview, but literally had like 10 minutes. He was like, "Do you have your resume here?" And luckily, I was actually going into the weeks before I was applying to investment banks and some strategy consultancy companies. That was my initial, sort of take. So I was prepared. That was the good thing, right? So that's the first lesson. You were ready
for interviews.
Exactly. I was ready. So, that's always something that I tell people, right? It's like you got to make sure that whenever you get a chance in life, when it presents itself, right, it's up to you whether you're ready for it, right? So the preparation is key. You never know what's going to happen. When you meet somebody and it's like, are you ready for that chance? or do you have to let it slip? So in my case, I got on the interview and it went super well, and it was still an informal interview, but it got me into the door, and he kind of gave me the signal like, hey, we'll get back in touch. So I didn't have to apply formally like most people, but they reached out to me, and so then a few weeks later, I got a call from a Google interviewer, basically from HR, and I got a screen call on the phone. That went really well, and they said, are you able to come to Dublin tomorrow? I said, yeah, sure. So they got me the flights 2 hours later. I got on to Dublin, and then I did a bunch of interviews at
Amazing.
the Google Plex there, yeah. So it was
And
really
it
nice.
started in the ad tech space particularly?
Exactly. I started in the ad section of Google, basically Google AdWords at the time it's called. And yeah, it was really good because it allowed me to learn, like the bread and butter of Google, which is advertising, how that works, everything related to online marketing, analytics. I was one of the first people in Google that built an advanced model for attribution modeling, because back in the days, people were just focusing on, let's say, measuring traffic. Everything was like, get traffic, to your site or whatever you were doing. But like, what's the traffic actually, converting, right? So how qualitative is that traffic? And then people moved into measuring conversions, but they were still doing what we call last click to conversion. So the way I like to explain it, if you do sports, it's like, let's say soccer, but it could be any other sport for that matter, right? The bottom line is the person who scores often a goal, they get all the credits, right? But without the assist, that person would never be able to make that goal. And so it's the same thing in advertising. You need sometimes, right, some pre-campaigns that are sort of your assist, the kicker to closing the deal. There's a few products that you can sell in, just one moment. But most products, they need,
So
different
pre-campaigns meaning you're warming up the audience before kind of the whole jab, 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 right hook type idea?
Exactly, because it's about creating awareness. Essentially, one of the things that I worked on as well was like a new model for understanding what the consumer decision journey is. And a lot of times, traditionally, we always believed it was sort of a side pyramid type of thing, right? So it goes from broad to narrow, the conversion funnel. But in reality, it follows a different path. And that's because of the internet. So basically what happens is when you have a product in mind, let's say you want to buy a smartphone, right? Which brands come to mind? Probably Apple, iPhone.
Yeah.
And then maybe, you think about Samsung and Android, yeah. But then, so that's called the initial consideration set. But then you're going to start doing research, right? And that's the active evaluation phase. And in that moment, actually, you start to look at other alternatives. So now new brands pop up. And that's because people start to search online. And that's when they get new information. That's an opportunity to win, a new audience. Initial consideration set are usually those brands that are so dominant, because they have been in business for so many years, and it's because of their brand, recognition. So if you're poor in branding, you will not be likely in this consideration set. But then you have to win in the next phase.
Got it. So you would help people on all different aspects, not just putting together these campaigns, but giving them essentially tips on how to brand themselves, how to put themselves and align themselves to even be noticed, because you can get maybe their ad in front of them, but that entire process of attributing that click to an actual sale is what you really spearheaded.
Exactly. What we found while we're at Google is that a lot of people, right, when they started with Google AdWords, everybody in the beginning is like super excited. And then, of course, you have a business. So if you don't have a positive ROI, you're not going to continue. So the question was, how can we make people spend more, on their advertising budget? And so the only way to do that is to help them with their entire business, essentially. And since Google was so key to their business, they also kind of accept that advice from us. So that's basically sort of that win-win scenario that we created. And sort of one of the projects that also developed was a project where we were looking to develop the next online giant. So you probably know Booking.com. They came out of nowhere, and it's like one of the success stories of Google. in terms of Google's clients, right? That really built from
one of the flagships.
Yeah, one of the flagships, exactly. So we're trying to see like how can we replicate, this kind of model.
Yeah.
And
So that's the SEM front. Did you also play on the SEO front, and was it all interlinked?
Good question. So in reality, at Google, SEM and SEO is like there's sort of this Chinese wall in between. And that's basically like a lot of clients, right? They try to, they try to get as much out of Google as possible, and of course, everybody wants to hack the algorithm. So we made sure that was separated. However, I worked a lot with the search quality team, and those are the guys that are basically, the experts on SEO. And if you ask them the right questions, you can get some good clues. So I was one of those people that was able to get a little bit more information than the average person. Yeah.
Yeah. So working within Google, I mean, you have this bird's eye view. You're straight up in there learning about the most up to date, basically tactics on how to get products seen and sold and all those things. The entire time, are you thinking, man, I could take this and do my own thing, or I could take this and learn and grow? And why, like, I guess 2 questions. Why didn't you do something like that sooner? And what is the challenge like when you have this huge skill set, but you're also married to this beautiful, beautiful woman named Google, who just is a great lifestyle?
No, 100%. And that's a really good question. So first of all, actually, since I've been very young, I've been quite entrepreneurial. So even when I was in primary school, I went to the Montessori School, by the way.
I don't even know what that is.
Well, actually, Maria Montessori is, just to be clear, it's an Italian woman. Okay. And basically, she developed a method for learning that requires, the assumption that a kid is naturally interested in learning. And it doesn't fall sort of a plenary, sort of a course module where you have to sit and learn with the entire class at the speed of the class. So basically, if you are like a really smart kid, you're kind of sort of limiting, that kid to accelerate his or her learning experience if you have to wait for the entire class to finish a topic, for example. But then on the other hand, if you are someone who has maybe a little bit difficulty doing sort of some math, then you can also get more, attention, right, from the teacher on that particular subject. So it's more individualized in that sense. So we were free. Basically, as a kid, you come in school, and we had sort of an objective, like, okay, these are sort of the tasks for the year, for the month, to finish. But you could decide when you wanted to do what. So I was very active in sports. I played a couple of hours a day, in fact. So often I was able to leave school before, normal closings. And that was because I was able to accelerate, the work pace. And it was really cool. So, for example, my case, I remember in the penultimate year, I was already done with the entire year before Christmas. And that allowed me to spend more time on drawing, creative stuff, writing poetry.
Are these schools someplace you actually show up? So they have physical locations all around the world?
Yeah, they have physical locations. It's a private school.
Got it.
So,
and can you take it all online? I mean, I'm sure they probably did something with COVID.
That's a good question. Nowadays, I believe there must be some online options, but I'm not aware of that, personally. I've been to different Montessori schools, also because I have some friends now who take their kids to these schools. It's not for every kid, though. Some kids need more guidance.
Yeah. Do you think that it's people who go there just come out these super geniuses, or do you think there's just some like terrible people there as well, just like in most schools?
No, well, you need self-starters. You need kids who, simple example, right? If you bring a couple of kids to a room and you don't tell them what to do, is this kid able to sort of, find something to do on their own? Are they creative enough? Are they, not bored, basically? And they'll tell you what to do. Basically, like, hey, come and see this. Can you help with this? This kind of kid, that's the one you should take to a Montessori school. If it's a kid that, doesn't know what to do, is very bored, it feels lonely, this person will probably drown in a Montessori school. Just to contextualize it, Larry and Sergey, the two founders of Google, also went to the Montessori School, right? And so a lot of Google's principles, such as the 28 rule, 80 rule, and a lot of the ideas of giving people more freedom, so to speak, really came from that Montessori philosophy. Because at Google, one of my projects, which was the huge street soccer tour, came from a 20% project. Basically, that means 80% of your work, right, was sort of like fixed, like the core job that you're doing, and 20% of your time you could do anything you like. This is where a lot of passion projects, got developed. Gmail came out of a 20% project, for example, and a lot of other successful projects, mine including. So my project was the YouTube Street Soccer Tour. So I came up with an idea during the 2010 FIFA World Cup to basically create a whole soccer experience where we would play against local talent, bringing some of the best street soccer players and professional football players, basically around cities in Europe and Africa, towards the World Cup in South Africa that happened in summer of 2010. It was really great because I brought a couple of star soccer players, including my friend Edgar Davids, who played for Juventus, Barcelona. The guy with the glasses.
Amazing.
Yeah, and he just informed me that he's been getting the assistant coach job for the Netherlands. So he's going with Louis van Gaal to Qatar for the World Cup. Yeah, exactly. So shout out to my buddy Edgar Davids. And so, and then we have a bunch of other soccer players, Marcel Desailly, who joined us in Ghana, Mike Wessien in London. And they played for, clubs such as Chelsea and AC Milan and things like that. So that was really great. And it allowed, what was really special about this project, at the time, YouTube wasn't officially launched in Africa. And so a lot of the content that, people, consumers in that part of the world were looking at wasn't any African, created content. So the idea was to make that experience more inclusive and sort of inspire, right? More local content to be created.
How did you bridge the gap between taking these awesome players and all the excitement and then linking it to, oh, by the way, let's create content and, build this?
Yeah, so the cool thing is I actually, Edgar and I, we talk about literally everything, basically a little bit like your podcast, and just, getting inspired. And so one day we were like, hey, because I moved to Google, and I was like, hey, why don't we do something together? And I was trying to figure out what we could do. And so he is really into street soccer as a culture and a foundation for kids from all kinds of backgrounds to sort of learn some basic rules of life, right? So street soccer is not just about becoming, the best player. It's actually about understanding how to work in a team, how to play with new people, how to behave in such situations, how to communicate better, and how to deal with obstacles and all these kind of things, and basically distract them from, other kinds of paths where we don't want the kids to go, right? So that in itself was a good foundation. And so connecting that with a competitive element, as in showcasing like who is the best street soccer team in the world. So we literally made a competition where Edgar Davids with the Street Legends, they're the guys behind the street soccer game, the EA Sports street soccer game, and they thought Ronaldinho and all the guys, all the tricks basically. And in Amsterdam, we used to play on all these soccer pitches, concrete. And so that was the premise. And in fact, any kid loves to compete, right, and show what he or she got. And so the locals, same thing, to be able to play against Edgar Davids and some of the best street soccer players in the world. I mean,
it inspires everything.
It inspires everything.
If this is in my backyard, what else could I do?
Exactly. But the cool thing as well is that after that, we also engage in dialogues and friendships. And a guy in Nairobi, Kenya, invited us, to go to his home. And
so you had the freedom to do some really cool creative outlets when working at Google that allowed you to realize your true potential and got the idea spinning
Yeah.
And what was the first big kind of jump away from that and into sort of your own gig?
Yeah, so I forgot to mention that before, basically while I was still, in school, I had a few companies myself. So I was in the event business. I organized several club nights. I worked as an MC, vocalist, some
You're
of the
an
best
MC?
DJs. Yeah, man. So basically what I did was I worked with some of the Dutch DJs, such as DJ Hardwell, played at Ultra,
What's your
and,
MC voice like?
what's my MC voice like? That's a good question, man. So if you put some music, let's see.
What type of song should we play?
It could be anything like a house song or something, or drum and bass.
Alexa, play Avicii.
So what I would do is like futuristic hope, supreme and fighter life's escape, trying to forget the ultimate mystery, reveal your own identity, seeking for the ability to pure the mind every time it shape its contour so it'll shine, like a diamond you'll bling, but getting smaller and smaller, And so basically this kind of stuff, but actually I need an interval where she's not singing.
That was so dope, dude. You turned it on right there. You were just like, I was like, oh, it's getting weird right now. Let's go.
Exactly. So anyways, coming back to the song, right? Or MCing. For me, MCing was really like to spiritually engage the audience. For me, it wasn't just about like, hey, throw your hands in the air, whatever, But like, I also worked in, at the time we had like UK garage. And so this was more like, sort of more grimy style and fast rapping. So it's like present a fat into your target at 90 degrees and you go like super fast. But I like to do more the poetry, spoken word, and let people really engage. And so that's the part that I liked.
Yeah, you're a rock star. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're doing that while you're working at Google. You've been doing that probably since you were just a very young person.
Yeah. So basically, when I was at university, that's when I did that mostly, right? So it actually helped me to pay my student bills, and I've been traveling around a bit. I emceed in Italy, in the Netherlands for the most part. But it was really nice.
So you would travel with a DJ, and the two of you guys would just go in and crush it?
Exactly. And now, as a result of that, I got my brother who's a DJ producer. And he's still a DJ producer, as in, like, this is his main job. He actually launched a record with Wizkid, and we do concerts with Burna Boy. And
did that whole experience build your confidence up a lot? Just getting out in front of people and spitting? Because I feel anyone that can do that, you're truly being the most authentic version of yourself because it's your creative ability in full flex. And if you can get in front of a group of people and just say the spoken word or whatever, which is just literally, poetry in motion, I just feel you feel untouchable after that experience because you're just truly just being yourself.
Exactly. So, no, I would agree to that. I must say that I'm lucky with the parents that I have because my parents are both entrepreneurs and very creative people. And my father comes from Ghana, West Africa. My mom is Dutch. So also, blending in the different cultures. But basically in the African culture, when you're young, and especially the type of father that I have, I was literally thrown in front of an audience. It's like you have no choice. So there's the music, that's playing, and then you got to go in the middle and show what you got, and then people give you money, and that's sort of a way to encourage the kids, to be out there. But for some reason, I always liked to speak in front of an audience. So I remember, I was standing at the balcony, maybe 4 years old, and already reciting all kinds of stuff. So that was some of my hobbies, let's say.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, we need that's awesome. I one of my hobbies is rapping, freestyle rap, mostly just when no one's around and I just listen to music in the car and I just try to freestyle rap as much as I can. And it never makes any sense. Like 1 out of 10 lines, I'm like, that was a little bit fire. but then I just laugh at it and I lose my whole focus.
Oh, okay. I must say, if you listen to someone like Ed Sheeran, right? He once said, look, for example, he showed in one interview, a Dutch interview, he was like, at first I couldn't sing. And so it was like, you just gotta repeat. It's like sort of doing this 10,000 hours, right? And then you become a master type of approach. So that's what Ed did. And I can say that from a Buddhist point of view, right, the dirt has to come out first, let's say, you know. So when you're thinking or whatever, spit all the garbage out, and then, you know, same thing with Martin Garrix when he produced Animals, this famous EDM track.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, so he said the same thing. Like, you can't imagine the stuff that he was making, you know, the 2 years prior to that song. It was a bunch of crap, but then this beautiful, amazing thing comes out. Most people, the problem, I think, why they don't succeed is because they give up too easily, you know?
And clearly you have not given up, and I love what you've done with Funfitt Women. It's incredible.
Thank you.
And I would love for you to tell everyone what that's all about, because you guys are at 5 million YouTube subscribers today?
Yeah, 5 million and growing. Yes, correct.
I mean, when I think about that, when I think about being a creator and building a YouTube channel and marketing to the right people, and just that whole space of building an actual channel is I wouldn't say it's so difficult, but it's very difficult, right?
Yeah.
And I think about your background in the Google world, and you know, essentially like engineering the way people look at things, and then seeing that you literally did it. You literally built this incredible brand. It's crazy, man. How did it start?
So yeah, so basically, I mean, Google was definitely, you know, where it started, as in, I was one of the pioneers on YouTube. At Google, I did one of the first campaigns with Nike, and then the YouTube Street Soccer Tour in 2010, which was pretty much one of the first global YouTube campaigns in history. So that's sort of where I got the idea. And then there was this one girl who I really, really like till this day. I think she's really, really inspiring. Her name is Michelle Phan. She is a Vietnamese American girl. And she is literally one of the makeup gurus on YouTube. She created her company called Ipsy. And now she has M Cosmetics, which she bought back from L'Oreal. And it's a really, really successful story. But the beautiful thing was I saw that she created authentic, you know, real content. And so when I saw that, and I wanted to be a little bit more hands-on and creative. So I like, you know, the business side, the analytics. But I felt like when you do consultancy work, you know, people tend at best to take 50% of your recommendations, and that's, you know, something good. And I felt like, look, you know, I want to be on the other side of the gold mine, so to speak, but not just for the money, actually really to impact people, you know. And one of the things that I noticed is that there was not a lot of content within the women fitness space and wellness. A lot of content was created for men by other men. And yeah, I did a lot of meta research, and I saw that. So when I met my business partner, Susanna Yabar, she used to work on TV in a pretty successful career in Spain as a reporter and so on and so forth. I basically approached her with the idea when we met in Ibiza, and was like, hey, why don't we do something together? We both love to travel. I remember I told you about this African proverb, right? Which I tend to use is, we travel not to escape life, but we travel so life doesn't escape us. And one of the things that I was missing while I was at Google was that although it was literally the most amazing job that I've had, you know, at a company, it was essentially still, you know, a place where you needed to check in every time the same office. There was little flexibility to work from different offices. You know, you could do that occasionally, but I felt like if you don't see 90% of your clients, I mean, why do we need to work from the office? You know, like, why not travel? There were a lot of other Google offices that were, you know, not fully utilized. So I felt like, you know, this is a no-brainer.
Right.
But I guess a lot of people found it out in the pandemic. But that vision I had for a long time already, you know. So that was the idea behind it, and developed the slogan, confidence is our best makeup. So the idea is that although a lot of times you see that when you want to create a community, that's the first thing. You need to figure out a shared belief, right? This is how you create a community. And while you share a certain belief, you know, people flock, and this is how you build your tribe. And then they'll start to give you ideas as well, you know, that you can piggyback on and stuff like that. And then, you know, it grows organically.
When you say giving you ideas, you mean sort of if you have this community, imagine you have 20 people that love working out. Now all of a sudden they're saying, hey, you should do a video on this and you should do a video on this. And they start giving you the content ideas, and then you basically bring it over and say, hey, we're hearing a lot of this, so let's push this out.
Exactly. That's the thing, right? They give you a lot of ideas and signals. Of course, you got to be a little bit careful at the beginning, because I feel like the mistake that most entrepreneurs or starting entrepreneurs make is that they kind of listen to everything around them in the beginning. And if people don't understand your vision, then you can easily get distracted and literally go on the wrong path. So and also Google had the same problem, because like Google focused so much on sort of basically like the really techies and like sort of the first group,
like analysis paralysis.
Yeah, exactly, because what happens is that in the end, if you really want to grow your business into like substantial numbers, you have to tap into a different audience. This is not the first mover anymore, right? And so they might not be so interested in what the first group was interested in. So you really need to have that clear vision, understand. You still need to decide. So you need to filter from whatever you're hearing, you see? But it's not like you blindly follow whatever your audience tells you to do. Sometimes you have to fire a client, essentially, right? Between brackets, as in, if this person is absorbing too much of your time, right? And it's not really helping where you want to go, then firing a client would be like, let's say, the tough approach. But there's also another approach where you literally like recommend someone else who can better serve, you, because that's not what you're about. So it depends, what you're trying to do. But in our case, what we really wanted to do is really inspire women to become the best version of themselves. And it started literally with, okay, let's start with the body. I want to have slim waist, for example. That was one of the things I found on YouTube, which was really interesting. A lot of the content was like, get a six-pack, this, that, blah, 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 abs, But like women don't really care so much about six-packs, right? So they care more about slimming their waist. So change the semantics already, attracts a different audience. You still got to moderate. So that's what we did as well, a lot of moderation. And that means that we were able to really get women. So 90% of our audience are literally women. Because a lot of women, they actually attract a lot of men. Nothing wrong with that, but if that's not your goal, then, you got to be careful, right? So it's really creating a safe space for women. That's what we did. And so if you don't moderate in the beginning, you'll get, basically the wrong people, like trollers and things like that.
Yeah, and what are some of the things that go into your thought process when you make a video and you're doing keyword research and you're trying to understand? Like, before you make a video, do you know what the title's going to be and what the content's going to be? And you basically ran a test beforehand to know that it's going to hit based on what you see?
Yeah, so that's the ideal approach. And that's something that we're trying to do more. But in reality, especially when you travel, like we did before pandemic, literally could be like every 2 weeks, we're in a different city, every month, different country. So if that's the case, a lot of times, especially the type of content we make, because it wasn't just about creating bodyweight exercise, but we actually wanted to film in the most beautiful location. So it's also sort of a virtual travel experience, and you get to travel, right? Through our eyes and, enjoy the world. And it's a little bit more motivating than just looking at, a painted wall or, for lack of a better word.
For sure.
But yeah, that kind of stuff. So essentially here, remind me the question exactly so I can answer that specifically.
Did you do keyword research
the keyword
before
research.
You make
exactly.
these videos?
And the titles, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So keyword research, yes. But then more in the broader terms. So for example, we figured out like, okay, we need more of, waist slimming content, things of that nature. But other than that, we found that we needed to produce quicker than we could kind of think, right? Or do research. So a lot of it in reality happened after the fact. Amazingly enough is that when you're really tuned into your authentic self, right? And the vision is clear, it doesn't really matter because every time things fell into place. It was like really amazing. So we literally would match the clothes with, the places where we had to film. But sometimes we literally had 3 hours to make a decision and go, right? So you just need to bring sort of a set, of clothes, and then quickly, match whatever works, and then you go with it. And so luckily that worked out for us.
Got it. So you have the style. Yeah, I mean, you're very well dimensioned, right? You have this analytical mind where you geek out on the tech, but you're also a straight MC and you want to be out there making stuff happen.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that probably just teeter-tatters in your head all the time.
Yes. And so here, this is my thing. So what I and then my brother actually, my late brother, who I mentioned to you about, Nana, he's always still with me every time I think about him. But essentially, one of the things that he mentioned to me was, because he was an actor and comedian, and he said that he found that whenever you prepare a show or any activity that is special to you, you are rewarded somehow, and that means like some amazing things happen that you didn't expect. You see, but if you don't prepare, then it can become very messy. So, simple example, because we prepared in the broad sense, we usually got like all these rewards and things fall into place. It's like you're in rhythm with the universe kind of thing.
I love that. Well, it's very timely because I've been preparing to marry my two friends on a yacht next Saturday, night and day. Might have said the speech 400 times in front of Sky, but I think it's right. Is that I love what you say there, because if you put your heart and soul into something and you put out good energy into it and you really give it your all, people see that, people feel that, and it's kind of like the art of reciprocation.
Yes.
It wants to come back.
For me, it's really simple, right? It's about energy. So it's like, what kind of energy do you put out in the world, right? Is this, if you're at a high energy, right? So let's say you're in a club, right? You need to get the crowd moving. So you need to be in a high energy. But also sometimes when it becomes too hectic, because the club is too full, there's too many people, you need to understand how to, turn the energy down again. So people relax and they calm down and people are not explosive, So managing the energy flow is really key here. And so I always say to people, like, the environment is a reflection of ourselves, right? And so simple example. So if I smile, you smile back, right? Like if I came here very grumpy and I was like, oh, I hate to be here, whatever, I don't think we'd have a great conversation, right?
For sure.
You probably would have kicked me out before we even started. So, basically that's the whole thing. And if you go into any place, any space, and you see a bunch of people, the people that have a lot of fun usually attract a lot of other people around them. Everybody wants to sit near those people. Nobody wants to sit behind someone, who's like super moody, unless, you have a sick desire for, anything.
Unless you're just like looking for someone to. It's like sort of the mosquitoes thing, You can't hang out with mosquitoes because they'll just suck the blood out of you.
Exactly, yeah.
There's no instance where it's fun to hang out with a mosquito, unless you're a bat.
Yeah. There's one approach, though. There's one.
And then COVID happens, so it's not even worth it.
But have you heard of the expression to turn poison into your medicine?
Yeah.
So basically, that's another approach that I live by. And so it means that sometimes, though, we are able to turn something negative into positive, right? And I think that as long as we're committed enough and we have a clear purpose, then that allows us sometimes to turn something that appears to be, toxic or negative into something positive. For example, on our YouTube channel, we have a lot of comments, right, from people. And usually, luckily, they're very positive. But sometimes you have these people that are just not in a good mood and they might say something, nasty, right? So what do you do in that instance? I found that if you literally don't take it personal, but you just acknowledge the comment, and you just try to figure out, okay, what's going on in this person's mind, and then react in a compassionate manner. I have seen over and over again that these people change. So 9 out of 10 times, they actually apologize and they actually become very nice.
Can you give an example? So if I commented on your photo, like, OMG, you guys are so shallow and I hate watching your stupid video. I hope you die. How would you respond to that?
Okay, so this is a very on the spot and very specific, but let's try. So if you would say something like that, right? So the first thing is that you can literally say something as "Thank you for sharing," you know, this heartfelt comment. And then I would say something about, so this person was like, I hope you die, or this is stupid, right? I could sometimes literally ask, if I'm very confident, I would literally ask, like, to understand what they thought was so stupid, and then we engage in the conversation. I can explain why I think that's different, or this is another way of looking at it, or I say I can imagine that maybe this looks or appears stupid, but if you actually try it, it will do you wonders.
It's interesting because if they're a smart ass, right, you could reply back in that and just get them more like angry. But the way you actually position it, and I ask that just because I'm curious, because that's one of the hardest things about being a creator is when you just get those mean 14-year-old kids that are just messaging you the most savagery stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, you don't care about the 9 good comments. You care about the 1 bad one.
Yeah. And so here's the thing, though. What I see a lot of people doing is that they react simply just nasty, and their bad side comes out because of, the negative comment. And the other thing is that they respond in a very sarcastic way, and I don't find that compassionate. So compassion is not looking down at someone, or pity the person, right? Compassionate is really about, acknowledge this person as another, human being that also values, to be absolutely happy. So sometimes I've also tried, like, how can I help you? Like in a very simple way, or how can I serve you, or how can I, make sure that you're having a great time? And then they have to think, because they actually don't know the answer to that.
Damn, you just Uno reversed them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's huge. And it goes down to your philosophy. And we got into about a 20-minute conversation just because I was so curious about Buddhism and the practices of being a Buddhist. Could you give a quick understanding of the raw principles of Buddhism for anyone that doesn't know?
Yeah, sure. So I practice Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism. And essentially, as a member of the Soka Gakkai International, which means value-creating organization, that's the translation from Japanese. It's an organization with more than 12 million members around the world. My mentor, Daisaku Ikeda, is a person who I learned, a lot from. And basically, to explain what Buddhism is about, one of the key essential things is, how can we become absolutely happy, right? So we distinguish absolute happiness from relative happiness. It's not that relative happiness doesn't matter or is not important. It's just that we need to understand the difference. So the difference between the two is that relative happiness is happiness that is related to external factors. So you got the great car, you got the great house, you got the beautiful girlfriend, all that kind of stuff, right? External factors. And so when they go, sort of the happiness disappears with it. But absolute happiness is happiness that comes from within. And it comes from within when you are aligned with your mission. And mission, loosely translated in Japanese, from a Buddhist perspective, would be to utilize one's talent or potential for good. So if you do that, right, then you find your purpose in life. And that in itself, right, is what can give you that happiness. So you can be happy in the worst circumstances. And it's also having the conviction that no matter the obstacle you are confronted with, that we have the ability to overcome this obstacle. And that's why being in a high life state is so essential. So what we do when we practice Buddhism is that we typically chant in the morning and the evening. So we recite the words Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. And this basically means that I devote myself to the law of cause and effect, and basically take the responsibility for my own happiness, because that's a big difference. A lot of people, they project, their happiness on other people. So what does that mean? If you believe that other people can only make you happy, right, or unhappy for that matter, then you're giving them all the power about your happiness. So basically, you give away that control, right? That you have yourself. So the way you can see it as a metaphor is that we have every cause, but basically every effect in life. Let's put it this way: every effect, every consequence, is a direct result of a combination of an internal and an external cause. So if we're talking about a plant, we have the seed and the water for the plant to, blossom, right? So the external and the internal, but we can control the internal cause. And so that's why a lot of times when things happen to us and someone says something to us, how do we approach that person or ourselves for that matter? And so the practice of what we call human revolution is something that we daily practice, and that means we're constantly working on ourselves to improve our state of mind, our state of being, as in we want to bring forth our wisdom, courage, and compassion and overcome our doubt and arrogance. And arrogance means I don't believe in your potential, your full potential. In fact, we believe in limitless potential. We all have limitless potential.
The abundance mentality.
The abundance mentality, exactly. And doubt means I don't acknowledge my own, limitless potential. And that's also a form of arrogance in that sense. So we need to overcome that. And so the beautiful thing about putting this into practice, for example, if you want to resolve conflicts, is that. And I remember one beautiful encounter with a teacher of mine at school, and I had the feeling like, what do you have against me, kind of question. And he said, look, I have nothing against you, only against that behavior. For example, I wasn't doing my homework.
Yeah.
Right? So the point is, if we can separate the behavior from the person, something really beautiful starts to happen if you really see this. Because why? You can reject someone's behavior, but you don't need to reject the person.
So you can forgive almost anyone when they do something
Exactly.
crazy.
And it also means that when you speak to that person, you can say, hey, this behavior that you just shown makes me feel so and so. And as a result, I feel less excited to hang out with you, for example. But it doesn't mean that you're saying, hey, you're stupid or you're this, you're that, where you're immediately rejecting the person. So now you give this person the opportunity to have a dialogue and better understanding. And so that's so essential. So in the end, it's really about how can we create a more harmonious society for ourselves, where we respect the dignity of all life. When we say all life, is literally all life. There's no exception whatsoever.
Yeah, because the person that before you educated me, when I thought of Buddhism, I think of someone that won't ever step on a bug because of the bug is a soul from someone. When you told me about this, it was really life-changing to me. It was cool. It was interesting. Because, when you say it like that, I'm like, why isn't everyone just practicing Buddhism? That sounds a pretty solid philosophy on living your life.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the beautiful thing, right? We need to ask ourselves, why do we exist? What's the purpose, right? Or what do we want to leave as a legacy here in the end? I feel like nobody, when you get born, you think to destroy the world, right? It's just because of bad experiences, the way you have been raised by your environment that sort of left different traumas and sort of a form of ignorance, on certain things. But in the end, everybody wants to feel good, right? Essentially, here's the thing. If your lowest life state is a state of hell, where you literally don't see the purpose of living anymore, actually what these people feel like, and I've been very close to some of these people. I had a really interesting encounter. But basically what I saw in that experience is that these people don't want to die. They just want to kill the situation they're in. But they feel that that's the only way out of their situation.
What have you seen that is a path that people can take to find themselves out of those situations for people that are in a really dark space and maybe haven't seen this outlook of looking at things?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So technically, right, the the most pure answer that I can give you is that you literally chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, because when you chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, you literally activate your Buddha nature. So you automatically get into a higher light state every time you chant. But for those people who don't know what chanting is, or for whatever reason still feel that, you know, they have resistance to doing it in the first place, there are other techniques. They don't work as good, but they do work, right? And that is like, you have anchoring techniques, right? Where you literally, like, every time you went through a great experience, you can sort of bring those memories back, right? So if you, for example, if you have sort of a symbol of clapping and you feel, you know, great because, you know, you won, and if you do the same thing when you're really feeling bad, you can bring back that good energy. Listening to certain type of music can change the entire, you know, flow. But if someone is really, really deep, often they need help, right? It's something that's very hard to do on your own. So I think people who have people around them that have the tendency, right, to give them life is really to listen without judging and literally acknowledging, because a lot of people don't feel acknowledged. They feel misunderstood. And that's where their, you know, depression and frustration comes from. And then the idea that they cannot make any mistakes, because if I make a mistake, then, you know, I suck. And, you know, we're too hard on ourselves in certain ways, and we're not strict enough in other areas.
With when it comes to religion and yoga and Buddhism and chanting, a lot of that stuff, when you go to yoga for the first time, there's different yoga chants that people do, but different religions have different chants. Is there something that they all have in common? And if so, is breath and meditation and breathing like very central inside of like Buddhism particularly, or is it very related?
Yeah. So one of the things that is really essential is the vibration. So when we chant, you basically vibrate, right, this energy into an entire universe. So that's why you can literally reach someone that is, you know, let's say in Australia, right? If we're here in the US. So it basically can travel any distance. If you go into quantum physics, we'll start to see that science is going to prove this. There are several people in this field that are scientifically proving this fact. And so basically breathing, of course, is important. And we always say that the conviction, I would say, like, one of the things that all these religions have in common, right, I think, is the conviction, the determination, right, to really, really go for something you're believing in, right? And essentially, you know, the essence of love is key too. And so if you think about it, one of the things I would like to see more in this world is self-love. A lot of times problems start because we don't love ourselves enough, and that's why we project that anger on other people. So we often blame people for the things that, you know, we haven't dealt with ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, that can reflect pretty much even, I mean, a lot of it probably has to do a lot with your ego, right?
Yes.
It's when you see someone succeeding and you see someone maybe get your dream car, or like they have this great family, you're just like, this motherfucker, you know, you have these symptoms where you're pushing down. You don't want to see them succeed, but truthfully, it just makes you feel uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Because you feel like it should be you and not them, or vice versa.
Exactly. What I often see is, like, if someone has something, you know, substantially more that you lack, so it's basically the opposite, you know, of you, two things tend to happen. You either admire that person or you develop an allergy. The two are very, very close, you know. But the beautiful part of it is that once you recognize this, it is an opportunity to learn, because you start to see, like, oh, why do I envy this person? It's actually because I realize that I'm struggling, you know. But okay, this person has maybe a little bit too much of what I would like. Simple example, you have people who love to speak and people who hate to talk, right? And they hate it, like, oh, this person's always talking, you know, like never can shut up. And then this other person is pretty much, you know, like finds it hard to speak in front of, you know, an audience. And what happens is like they feel that they're not being acknowledged, or, you know, they're sort of pushed back, which often happens. And so I think it's finding that balance on both sides.
I think a big part of my life that I'm still always trying to figure out is everyone has their own gifts, right? Some people are great speakers, MCs, painters, artists. Some people just crush it in Call of Duty, like whatever your thing is, right? You have a gift. If you acknowledge that you have a gift, it really opens up a whole new world, because people that have gifts, and everyone has gifts, it's just some people have acknowledged that gift and proven it to the world, and other people haven't, right? Correct. You now feel more comfortable surrounding yourself with other gifted people. And you start giving yourself the flexibility to say, hey, I belong here. But if you don't believe that you belong, that you can contribute to the group, you'll never be ready and prepared for that day that you get the call and you get the opportunity and you're prepared for that. So that just kind of went full circle with what you said earlier.
Cool. Yeah. I like that. And thanks for sharing. So what I see a lot of times is that when we're talking about, let's say, talent, mission, and these kind of things, and then sort of competition. If we go back to the word competitor, which is a Latin word, essentially the whole meaning behind it was to really, you know, sort of engage yourself into becoming better. But often what we need is someone else to polish, you know, our character, so to speak. So it's the same way, like you need two rough diamonds, right? To polish each other, right? So it's like same thing with human beings. So that in that interaction, we become better people. And that's beautiful, because once you realize that, then you also can have more gratitude and can be more grateful for certain experiences, even if you meet someone and didn't work out. But it's like, oh, actually, there's a lesson here, right? What does it say about me? Maybe I should understand where to set more limits, or, you know, it could be more engaging, or any of that kind. What I truly believe, and I think if you can believe this, it changes everything, the way you think about competition, and you never have to feel jealous about anything. And that is the fact that we are all unique, and we're all uniquely gifted. So in other words, there is enough space for each and everyone to literally, you know, showcase our talent and our gift. So if you really focus on your own gift and encourage other people to showcase their gift, we actually create a better world. A metaphor for this is, if you think about a orchestra, right, or any band, you know, one is the drum, right, the other plays the saxophone, and so on and so forth, right? So all these instruments together create a beautiful, you know, harmonic, you know, melody, let's say. So this is my ideal, you know, way of looking at it, and I feel like if you really believe that, you're not worried about, you know, anything for that matter.
Yeah, and it's interesting from my perspective, because when I met you and we were talking about just some of your just all the ideas, you always have so many different ideas, right? And typically people that, you know, are ambitious have a bunch of ideas and different projects they always want to work on. What are some of the things that you've used that help you sort of prioritize where you should spend your time?
Yes.
And not get distracted versus likewise?
Sure. And I think that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, first of all, that's an ever challenging, you know, kind of day-to-day operation, right? Especially when you have so many ideas. I find that has been one of my biggest challenges, is to choose. It started already with the different sports I was playing. I was playing soccer at a, top level, tennis, karate, and then, where do you go? So early on, I got that advice, like, you got to choose, right? Because otherwise you're going to be like mediocre kind of in everything you do. So the thing that helps me is a couple of things. Number one, I look at a concept from Mr. Makiguchi, who is the first president of the SGI. He developed a concept which is called the good, the beauty, and the benefit. And the idea is to have all these three elements in harmony. Most people only focus on one or two of these three elements. and that's why they're in imbalance. So the idea is beauty is number one, right? Do something that you're truly passionate about. And if you're passionate about something, then probably you tie into your talent naturally. Good is to create value, not just for yourself, but also for the society around you. And then benefit in the end, we need to make a living, money, and so on and so forth, right? So it's these three elements. And so what you see is that people are all about nonprofit and for good causes, but they forget that, I need to survive. If you can't pay your rent, how can you keep helping other people if you spend too much time struggling and you cannot sleep well and things of that nature, right? And then you have people who are only focusing on benefits and they're creating a product that doesn't really add any meaningful value to society. In fact, it could destroy people. In my opinion, that's something that a lot of people tend to overlook. And so the idea is that in the short terms, maybe great because, you get some quick money in, but then in the end, doesn't really fulfill you, right? So I try to look at these three things. So can I find in all the ideas that I have, do I find these three elements? So that's the first, thing that I do. And then the second thing is that you then look at impact. Where do I generate the most impact? What is something that I could do that maybe not someone else could do so easily? And what is something that I could literally share with someone else and maybe they could even do it better than me, right? Then I might even share the idea with you and go ahead. Because to me, the more important thing that gets done, I don't need necessarily to do it myself. So that's sort of how I look at it.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, asking yourself those questions. I think getting to a point where you're comfortable is everyone's first priority and instinct when you're in a scenario where you don't have enough money or you're just not in a house you like to live in, a place you like to live in, the people around. It's your first instinct is I need to get food, clothing, and shelter. I need to have my stuff. And then once you get that, once you have some cash, once you can get to a position where you can stop and say, okay, everything I wanted, I now have. Then you ask yourself, what's next? What do I want? And then you almost go back in time and say, okay, what actually makes me happy? So it's doing those happiness audits that we need to do to ourselves all the time and ask ourselves, what is happiness to us?
Correct.
Because most people, and including me at some level, and I'm always trying to work on it, don't truly know what makes them happy. And then they get caught up in the world's definition of what makes them happy.
Correct.
And then they're behind in bills and then they lose it all. And then, it just turns into a nightmare. So and it also goes back to the question of you were talking with Buddhism, it's about working on yourself and being happy with yourself. And that's also what you need to do if you're ever going to be in a good relationship, right?
Correct. And so, the approach that I also follow is also a Buddhist concept, and that is about prioritizing the following. And that is we have the heart, we have the body, and we have the storehouse. And so in terms of your underlying value-based system, a lot of people, they might prioritize the storehouse. Storehouse is another word for money, basically. So what I do is I focus on the heart first. So any decision that you make, start from the pure heart. Then you will naturally focus on the body, which means your health, right? And then you focus on the storehouse. So they're all three important, but there is a difference in priority. So in other words, if you focus on the storehouse, that's your main priority, it will come at cost of the heart and the body. Because, it's a situation where people are overworked and, they're burned out and things of that nature. So it's really important to follow that sequence, in my opinion.
Heart, body, storehouse.
Correct.
I love that.
Yeah.
In terms of the body, what type of health-wise and diets, are you vegan?
So good question. So vegan for me is sort of, I eat a lot of vegan food. I wouldn't say I'm vegan because I do eat fish occasionally, but I don't eat dairy products. I don't take sugar. And so, try to
do you do meat?
Get away. No, I don't eat meat.
No, okay. No. So only fish. So
yes,
one may call that a pescatarian.
Correct.
Got it. What type of fish you like?
I actually, last week, I prepared a really nice red snapper.
Yeah. Snapper's the best.
Exactly. And I have a really nice recipe,
Yeah, I mean, it's the best. I have you ever done spearfishing?
No, actually, I found a guy in Tulum, a little kid of like 11 years old, and my friend was saying this kid needs to have a YouTube channel because he knows how to spearfish already, at 11 years old. So, yeah.
That's one of the most satisfying hobbies, right? When you go down there, you jump in the water, straight spear in hand, just me, the ocean, and the fish. Very
Yeah.
dangerous. You can really F yourself up real quick, but it's also really rewarding
Yeah.
when you get that fish. It's also the least invasive way of fishing, which is a great
Interesting,
fun fact.
interesting.
We're actually going to have the guys from Spearfishing Review on the podcast
Oh,
in
really?
the next few weeks. They have like the largest spearfishing channel. They're going to be coming in here. They actually live in Miami. It's so crazy.
Oh, wow. Really?
So I'm excited to
Interesting.
meet those guys. But the fishing thing is great, and just being a pescatarian makes a lot of sense. Have you found that? Do you do that because of how your body reacts, or is it more from like an ideal standpoint?
It's a little bit of both. At some point, like during the pandemic, I was staying with my mother in Amsterdam. For the most part, I was also in Portugal and Ibiza. But when I was there, she hardly eats meat, and I didn't really feel the need to. So we were like, okay, let's just stop buying meat. And then you're not really eating at other people's places anymore. So,
Right.
naturally sort of, you get yourself into the habit. And so when I went to the vegetable store, they had a butcher inside as well. And I literally couldn't even look at the meat anymore. It's like I couldn't eat it. And also then I started thinking about all the animals, and the way they're suffering. And you ask yourself, is it really necessary to eat, so much meat, and all these animals have to die, for no reason, really. I'm not against it 100%, but I feel like we can be way more conscious about, the food that we consume
Yeah.
and the reason why, because in the end of the day, also from a Buddhist perspective, there's no such thing as you can do this, but we live with the causes we make have the consequences we have to face, right? So it does impact us, the decisions we make. So in that sense, I really believe that a lot of things in this world are a direct result of some of these actions that we take. The way we treat our animals is also a direct reflection of some of the sickness that we see in this world, some of the things that we've experienced. That's just what I believe from a more spiritual point of view.
If someone wanted to dip their toes into Buddhism and start implementing some of these philosophies, what books or people would you recommend they check out?
Yeah, so I would.
This is really asking for myself. But.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. So first of all, I would go to the website. We have a good website. You can go to sgi.org, and from there you can go to the US site. I think it's sgi -usa.com, but I'm not 100% sure. So better go to sgi.org, and you'll find the US version. There's one called sokkaglobal.com. And it's really beautiful because there you find a lot of reading materials, articles, books. There's one book that I highly recommend, which is called The New Human Revolution by Daisaku Ikeda. It's actually, I think it's a novel with the most, how do you say that?
Reviews?
No, not even reviews, versions. So he has written, more than 20
That's crazy.
books, within this series. I mean, yeah, and he has written so many other books. But yeah, that's definitely one that I recommend. And then there's a book that's called Basics of Buddhism, and that really helps to explain some of these main principles. Yeah, that's what I would.
A question I always ask anyone that ever comes on the pod, and it's sort of something that you just kind of got to look inside, is if you could go back in time, and the now you could go back to the pre-Google you, and you could have told yourself 1, 2, or 3 things that could have saved you a ton of time, money, heartache, headache, and you only had a quick listen up, homie. And obviously the best answer is I wouldn't have told myself anything because it made me who I am today. But we're not going to use that for the sake of the question. What are some of those lessons you wish you could have really instilled upon yourself?
Yeah, so the first thing is a really good question. The first thing I would tell myself is never base any decision on fear, but rather on possibilities and opportunities. And I mean, I remember actually, this was also during, I think it was at the time when Obama was running for president. And I was listening to Michelle Obama speak, and she was explaining, like, they asked her, like, oh, what do you think that your husband is going to run for president? And are you comfortable with everything that it brings, you know? And she somehow said something similar, that they made a decision not to, base any decisions on fear. And I was like, wow, that's such a Buddhist concept, you know? Where did they get that from? But it's interesting. So, yeah, so that's something what I've learned from my mentor, is that we often base our decisions on fear, and it comes from a place of ignorance and self-doubt. And it makes life really difficult, you know. I can really look back at those moments like, why did I do that? Like, what do we have to lose in the first place? So I'm happy that, many times I was able just to follow my heart and just go when other people said, don't do it, you know. Getting into Google was already amazing, but then leaving Google was like even more amazing. And people were like, this is crazy, because, you know, at the time the whole world was in a crisis, or sort of, after period of that. And Google was going, you know, all the way up, very successful. And I was leaving a very successful company, a successful career, to go back in the unknown. People are like, it makes no sense. But in the end, you can only live your life. You know, you cannot live someone else's life. And so that's really important, because in the end, if you live someone else's life, try to please other people, you're going to be empty inside. That's really what I feel. Whereas if you truly live by your own standards, and I'm talking about your good standards, not the lost you, the authentic you, you know, that person, you know, that really wants to do good with the talent that you have, that person, that's your authentic self. That authentic self will naturally inspire other people.
That's money. There it is. I love this. We need to make this a regular thing. You're welcome to my house anytime.
Thanks, bro.
Man, yeah. I could just, I mean, again, we could just talk about this for another few hours. And it's interesting because, I mean, I fight with this all the time. Someone always says to me, sometimes people say, Ian, are you always so happy? Because, like, people see my stories. I'm like, what's up, y'all? It's a damn good day. I roll in the post office. I'm like, what's up, y'all? It's a damn good day. Oh, it's a damn good day. Like, people ask myself, like, are you always so happy? And I really ask myself that question, and it's not true. Like, sometimes I get super sad. And, like, I think a lot of people that are very happy also see it on the other side. I'm like 90% stoked on life, but sometimes you hit periods in your life where you're just not, like, you just don't have that burst. And a lot of it's you asking yourself hard questions. Like, am I doing what I love? Am I solving my purpose? What should I be doing? And I think it's very natural, but you have to have that sort of, at some level, you need to have some pain and suffering in order to become a better person and to, like, grow into a new person. So it's almost like growing pains into finding your happiness. I'm just rambling, but I was just thinking about just this entire, the Buddhist philosophy and how do I, in some way, live some of those practices? And if so, which ones should I be implementing?
Interesting. Yeah, so I feel like when it comes to pain we can really use as a source, as a fuel for growth. You know, so the more important thing is not to sort of disregard the pain that we're feeling. Accept the pain you're feeling, but redirect your pain. You know, because if you redirect your pain, you can turn, you know, something into something that is apparently very negative into something very positive. You see, so if you face something difficult and you had to suffer, but you're overcoming, you know, whatever it is, could be sickness, could be anything. And now there's other people that you meet in your life and they're going through something similar. You know, you can use that
You build empathy.
You build empathy, compassion, but also, the spirit of never giving up. And that's the beautiful gift that you can give to those people. So then you turn that poison into your medicine, and that it becomes a gift. So a lot of times our misfortune, our pain, is actually directly our strength when we understand how we can redirect, because it's an energy. So it's just about understanding how you can use the energy for good. And so that's how I would look at that.
How can people follow you if they want to get more and learn about you and your companies and everything you're doing?
Yeah, so hit me up on Instagram. It's just my last name, Sarpong. So you spell Sarpong, Sarpong. Funfitt, so our brand. Confidence is our best makeup. So just go to funfitt.com, T. If you type in Funfitt on YouTube, you'll see all our content as well. I think that's the most important. By the way, for those of you who speak Spanish, si hablas español, tengo un libro que se llama El Reto Mariposa. It's a book called The Butterfly Challenge. It's a book focused on the mind, the body, and food. And you get to do a test to figure out what belly type you have and what your belly says about your hormones and how you can sort of reset your body and, lift up your mind. And that's,
Yeah, I need to reset this body, bro. We need to get ourselves an ice bath, too, while we're at it. This guy's he needs it. He did 2 weeks with Wim Hof, and he came back, and now he's just, all about the ice baths. I hate it. I just want to stay warm. I like hot tubs. All right, with that said, it's a wrap.